Pascal. Pascal came out in 1970. It was made by a Swiss computer scientist named Nicholas Wirth. He wanted to build a language that taught people to code the right way, clear and organized, not messy. Back then, a lot of code was hard to read because there were no real rules about how to write it. Pascal fixed that by forcing structure. It made you break your code into clear, ordered parts instead of just writing it however you wanted. That's why it became one of the top languages used to teach coding in schools and universities through the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. It wasn't only used for teaching, though. Early versions of Adobe Photoshop were written in Pascal on the Mac, and a version called Object Pascal through a tool called Delphi was used to build the early desktop version of Skype. So why did it fade out? As software got bigger, coders wanted more freedom and more control than Pascal allowed. Languages like C and later C++ gave them that, so companies moved to those instead. Pascal mostly stuck around in classrooms after that. The name has a simple story too. Wirth named it after Blaise Pascal, a French mathematician from the 1600s who built one of the first mechanical calculators. PHP. It came out in 1994. It was made by a programmer named Rasmus Lerdorf. He didn't set out to build a big programming language. He just wanted a simple way to track visitors on his own personal webpage. He made some small tools to help with that, and other people started using them too. PHP works on what's called the back end of a website. That means it runs on the server, not on your screen. When you open a page, PHP is the one working behind the scenes, checking if you're logged in, pulling up your data, and putting the page together before it's sent to your browser. Over time, more features got added, and PHP grew into a full language used by websites everywhere. A big reason it became so huge is WordPress, which is built on PHP. Since so many websites use WordPress, PHP ended up running a large chunk of the internet without most people even knowing it. PHP does get made fun of a lot in the coding world. Early versions of the language were seen as messy and inconsistent since it wasn't planned out carefully from the start. It just grew piece by piece. But even with that reputation, it's simple to use, free, and still does the job for millions of websites today. The name itself changed over time. It first stood for Personal Homepage since that's what it was built for. Later, it was changed to stand for PHP, Hypertext Preprocessor, which is the name it still uses now. Python. Guido van Rossum, the Dutch programmer who built it in 1991, was a fan of the comedy show Monty Python, and that's where the name actually came from. The snake logo showed up later once people had already run with the theme. Guido's real goal wasn't about jokes though, it was readability. Most languages at the time were packed with strict punctuation and symbols that made code hard to scan. Python stripped a lot of that away, so a line of code reads almost like a plain English sentence. That readability is why so many people recommend it as a first language today. But it didn't stay small. A big reason Python grew into something huge is its libraries, pre-built toolkits other programmers already made. Want to work with data? Pandas and NumPy handle that. Want to build AI? TensorFlow and PyTorch. Want to build a website? Django and Flask exist for that. Instead of building tools from scratch, you just plug these in. That's how Python ended up powering some pretty massive stuff. Netflix uses it to help decide what to recommend you. Instagram runs on it. NASA has used it in real missions too. Its biggest weakness is speed. It runs slower than a lot of other languages, but it trades that for speed of a different kind, speed of writing. Code that takes 50 lines somewhere else might only take 10 lines in Python. C++. Picture C, but ready to handle bigger, messier projects. That's basically what C++ was built to be. It was created around 1983 by Bjarne Stroustrup. He liked how fast C was, but as programs kept growing in size, writing everything in plain C started getting hard to manage. So he took C and added ways to organize large, complicated code into smaller, more manageable pieces without giving up the speed that made C so good in the first place. That combination of speed and structure is why C++ ended up in places where performance really matters. Video games are the biggest example. A lot of graphics-heavy games run on it, including ones built with Unreal Engine, which powers a huge chunk of the gaming industry. It also shows up in web browsers like Chrome and even in Wall Street trading systems, where being a fraction of a second faster can matter a lot. Even with all that power, C++ isn't easy to pick up. It gives you a lot of control, but that also means more room to make mistakes, especially compared to simpler, more modern languages. As for the name, it's a small programmer joke. In code, ++ usually means add 1 to this. So C++ literally means C, +1 better. Java. Ever notice how the same app works the same way on a Windows laptop and a Mac? Java is a big reason that became normal. It was released in 1995 by James Gosling and his team at Sun Microsystems, built around one core promise: write your code once and run it anywhere Windows, Mac, didn't matter. Before Java, that wasn't really possible. A program built for one type of computer usually had to be rewritten to work on another. Java solved this using something called the Java Virtual Machine, which acts like a middle layer, translating the code so it runs the same way no matter what device it's on. That runs anywhere ability is also a big reason Java became the backbone of Android for years, since most early Android apps were built using it. It also became the language of choice for banks, airlines, and other large companies that needed software that just works reliably for a very long time. The trade-off is that Java tends to be wordy. Doing something simple often takes more lines of code compared to other languages. But for big companies with hundreds of developers working on the same system, that extra structure keeps things consistent and prevents people from doing anything too creative that might break things later. The name has a simple backstory too. It was originally called Oak after a tree outside the office of one of its creators, but that name was already taken. So the team switched to Java, named after the coffee, Haskell. Most languages let you change things as your program runs. Haskell mostly doesn't. Once something is set, it stays that way, and that one rule makes it very different from most other languages here. It came out in 1990. No single person built it. A group of researchers created it to standardize functional programming, a style where code works more like math, using functions that always give the same result instead of quietly changing things in the background. This helps avoid real bugs. One is a state bug. It happens when two parts of a program change the same data at once and cause a crash, something Haskell makes harder since values usually can't change once set. Another is the null reference error, where code tries to use a value that was never given one. That reliability is why Haskell shows up in finance, and why Facebook once used it to help build part of its anti-spam system. The trade-off is a steep learning curve, even for experienced coders. The name honors Haskell Curry, a mathematician behind many of its core ideas. SQL. Most languages tell a computer how to do something step by step. SQL just tells it what you want and lets the database figure out the rest. That's the whole idea behind it. It was developed in the early 1970s by researchers at IBM, Donald Chamberlain and Raymond Boyce, based on earlier work by Edgar Codd on how relational databases should work. The goal was simple: let people ask questions about data using something close to plain English, instead of writing complicated code to search through it manually. That simplicity is why SQL became the standard way to talk to databases. Almost every major company uses it somewhere: banks, airlines, social media apps, online stores. Anytime an app pulls up your order history or checks your login, there's a good chance SQL is working behind the scenes. Its limitation is that it's built only for working with data, not for building full applications, so it's almost always paired with another language. The name was originally SQL, short for Structured English Query Language, but it got shortened to SQL after a naming conflict with another company, FORTRAN. Before FORTRAN, programming meant writing in raw machine code or assembly, instructions so low level that even simple math took a painful amount of effort. FORTRAN changed that. It was released in 1957 by a team at IBM led by John Backus. The goal was to let scientists and engineers write programs using something closer to normal math formulas, instead of hand-coding everything at the hardware level. The name itself comes from that goal. FORTRAN is short for Formula Translation. It's considered the first widely used high-level programming language, and it opened the door for basically every language that came after it. For decades, it was the go-to language for heavy scientific and engineering calculations, things like weather modeling, physics simulations, and early space program calculations at NASA. FORTRAN's weakness is that it wasn't built for the kind of general software people build today, like apps or websites. It was designed purely for number crunching, so it never adapted well outside that world. Even so, it hasn't disappeared. A surprising amount of FORTRAN code still runs today in scientific research and engineering systems, simply because it still does the math reliably and nobody wants to risk rewriting it. Perl. Some languages are built for one job. Perl was built to be flexible enough to handle almost anything thrown at it, especially messy, real-world tasks like digging through text. It was created in 1987 by Larry Wall, a linguist and programmer. He wanted a tool that could easily scan text files, pull out patterns, and generate reports, tasks that were common but annoying to do with the tools available at the time. Perl made this kind of work fast and simple, which is part of why it earned the nickname the Swiss Army knife of programming. That strength made it hugely popular in the 1990s, especially for running early websites. Before more modern web languages existed, a lot of the internet's early back-end work, things like handling forms and generating dynamic pages, ran on Perl. Its downside is readability. Perl gives you a lot of freedom in how you write code, which means the same task can be written in wildly different ways by different people. This earned it a reputation for being hard to read, especially in code someone else wrote, since it can end up looking cluttered and confusing. The name doesn't have a flashy meaning. Perl originally stood for Practical Extraction and Reporting Language, a straightforward description of what it was built to do. COBOL. A huge amount of the world's banking and government systems still run on a language most programmers today have never touched. That language is COBOL. It was developed in 1959 by a group of computer scientists, with Grace Hopper playing a major role. The goal was a language that read like plain English, so business people, not just engineers, could follow the code. Where a modern language might write total X price plus tax, COBOL spelled it out as add price to tax giving total. It reads like an instruction, not a formula. That's also where the name comes from. Common business-oriented language. That readability made it ideal for banks, insurance companies, and governments handling huge volumes of transactions reliably. Because of that, COBOL became the backbone of many financial systems, and much of that code still runs today, since replacing it is risky and expensive. Its weakness is that the same plain English style makes it wordy and slow to write compared to modern languages. There's also a shrinking pool of programmers who know it, while old systems still need maintenance, making COBOL skills surprisingly valuable today. Prolog. Most languages tell a computer exactly what steps to follow. Prolog does something different. You give it facts and rules, and it figures out the answer itself. It was created in 1972 by Alain Kolmarauer and Philippe Roussel, aimed at a field called logic programming. Instead of writing step-by-step instructions, you write things like parent, Tom, Bob, and parent, Bob, Ann. Then ask grandparent, Tom, Ann, and Prolog works out the answer using logic, not a set procedure you wrote yourself. This approach made it a natural fit for artificial intelligence research, especially in the 1980s, where it was used for things like expert systems and natural language processing. It's still used today in some AI research and areas involving complex rule-based reasoning, like certain legal and medical diagnostic tools. Its weakness is that this logic-based style is very different from how most software is built, so it's hard to use for everyday tasks like websites or apps, and it has a steep learning curve for programmers used to step-by-step languages. The name is simple. It's short for programming and logic. Ruby. Ask a Ruby programmer why they like it, and you'll probably hear the same word a lot: happiness. That was actually the goal. It was created in 1995 by Yukihiro Matsumoto, known as Mats in Japan. He wasn't happy with existing languages, saying they focused too much on the computer's needs and not enough on the programmers. So he built Ruby around a simple idea: coding should feel natural and enjoyable, not like a chore. That focus made Ruby clean and easy to read, close to plain English in a lot of cases. It really took off after a framework called Ruby on Rails came out in 2004, which made building websites fast and simple. Companies like Airbnb, Shopify, and GitHub were all built using Ruby on Rails in their early days. Its weakness is speed. Ruby runs slower than many other languages, which can be a problem for companies handling massive amounts of traffic. Some, like Twitter, eventually moved parts of their systems away from it for that reason. The name has a simple story too. Matz picked it because Ruby is a birthstone, and he liked how it sounded next to Perl, another language he admired at the time.